Alright, what's up everybody, and welcome back to the Cyclonic Thrift channel. Today is our last video looking at some new cards from the Outlaws of Thunder Junction set. It's our normal deck building video today, where I take cards from my own collection and just build a deck out of what I already have, so I'm not spending money online. But usually in these decks, I'm just pulling a commander out of my collection. It's a card I've had for a while. I'm just interested in the ability, the deck structure, anything, something like that, and just build it from there. For this one, I actually I got a pack from the new set and managed to pull this Vraska the Silencer, and thought the timing would be perfect to have a deck build surrounding this commander. So excited to get into it. Again, brand new card. Excited to see what cards that I already had that really fit well with this commander and into this deck. So without further ado, Vraska the Silencer is 1, a green, and a black for a 3/3 legendary creature Gorgon Assassin. She's got Death Touch, classic, and whenever a non-token creature an opponent control dies, you may pay 1. If you do, return that card to the battlefield tapped under your control. It's a treasure, so you can tap it and sacrifice to add a mana of any color, and it loses all other card types. So when you steal creatures this way, they're no longer creatures. They are nothing except a treasure artifact. So you're not stealing opponent's creatures to be able to block or attack with them, that sort of thing. One, the main reason is to get that card out of their possession, right? So even if something dies, goes to the graveyard, they might be able to get it back. This kind of keeps them from being able to do that. 2, it ramps you, right? So it gets you treasures when you do this. You can use it at a later turn. And 3, it gives you access to some static abilities that you wouldn't normally have, right, in your deck. So cards like if an opponent has a Consecrated Sphinx or something like that, that blue card draw benefit that Golgari certainly doesn't have. But if you take that Consecrated Sphinx, turn it into a treasure, it's not a creature anymore, so you can't attack with it or anything, but it still has that ability of if an opponent would draw a card, you draw 2 cards, So that's kind of the direction that I wanted to take this deck. It's a lot of removal. It's a lot of targeted removal. We wanted to be able to pick and choose which of our opponent's creatures die. Board wipes are nice, but we're looking to be surgical with this and choosing specific creatures that we want on our board. And with that, a lot of targeted removal spells come with a bit of a downside. But what I wanted to do and go with the Death Touch theme of Vraska is include a ton of Death Touch creatures in this deck. And then for our removal spells, use a lot of fight spells. So you'll see what I mean when we get to it later in the video. But that way we can have a Death Touch creature out, cast our fight spell, and trade our 1/1 with Death Touch for 1, removing a massive threat from our opponent's board, and 2, possibly taking it and using it to our advantage. So without further ado, let's get into some of the cards in this deck. The first card is Defile. It's 1 black for an instant. Target creature gets -1/-1 until end of turn for each swamp you control. So this fits perfectly into what we're trying to do. Target removal, taking out a creature. It's cheap, which is exactly what we want. We need that that extra mana with Vraska to be able to steal it. So we want our removal spells to be as cheap as possible. And this is going to do the trick. I mean, if we've got 3 or 4 swamps out, which is not unlikely in this deck, this is going to get rid of most creatures that we'd want to steal. This is going to fit perfectly. Next is Soul Shatter, 2 and a black for an instant. Each opponent sacrifices a creature or planeswalker with the highest converted mana cost among creatures and planeswalkers they control. So it's a little bit of a higher mana cost, and we've got less control over it. But there's a couple upsides. So 1, it's a 3 for 1, right? So each opponent is sacrificing a creature. We potentially could take all 3 if we've got 3 open mana and we want to pour it all into Vraska, but we can pick and choose. And 2, the main issue with the generalized removal, where you're not actually choosing the creatures, is a lot of times your opponents can kind of pick this random token or blocking, a chump blocker to just get rid of something that's not very impactful. But this, because they're sacrificing creatures with the highest mana value, it's almost guaranteed to be either their best or second best creature that's on the board. Could be their commander, could be a combo piece. And so, again, this 3-for-3 value with you still being able to potentially take a really powerful card it was too good to pass up in this deck. And the next, we've got a couple of those Death Touch creatures I was talking about. So Ambush Viper is 1 and a green for a 2/1 creature snake, has Flash and Death Touch. Super cool interaction with Flash and Death Touch. You know, you can keep this in your hand as long as you need to. Your opponent swings in thinking that, you know, there's nothing that, no blocking that can go on. You know, they're safe from damage. Flash this in, trade it with their best creature, take it out. Or, you know, if you want to play some games with the targeted fight spells at instant speed, we can do this on somebody's end step right before our turn. A lot of cool things you can do with Flash and Death Touch. And then we've got Arinus Gloomstalker, 2 and a green for a 3/3 legendary creature halfling ranger, has Death Touch, and whenever it attacks, you return target land card from your graveyard to the battlefield. So, you know, this isn't a massive self-mill deck. That's not really the direction I wanted to take it, but there is a little bit of that. Golgari is famous for taking advantage of the graveyard, using that as card advantage. So there is definitely a little bit in this deck, and Arinus is, on top of being a Death Touch creature, a Death Touch 3/3 that we'll be able to use to take out some of our opponent's creatures. It also will help us ramp a little bit by getting an extra card or two out of the graveyard. Next, I want to talk about some of those fight spells. So this is when we have Death Touch creatures on the battlefield. You know, Vraska's Death Touch, obviously the Death Touch creatures we just talked about, and we want to use that Death Touch to take out certain creatures on our opponent's boards. And we have tons of low mana cost fight spells. It's just 1-for-1, right? Your creature, you know, each creature deals damage to each other. It's going to take out whichever creature you want on the other side and potentially get you that creature with Vraska's ability. But there are a couple cards here that are more repeatable or more widespread. The first is Spinning Wheel Kick. It's XX green for a sorcery. Target creature you control deals damage equal to its power to each of X target creatures and or planeswalkers. So this is nice because it's one-sided, right? So it's not necessarily a fight spell in which your opponent's creatures are also dealing damage back. Our creature is the only one dealing any damage. I mean, it's 4 mana to kill one thing. That's a lot. But that's not really where this card shines. It's when X starts to get bigger. So it's 6 mana to kill 2 things, 8 mana to kill 3 things, all of which will still be able to get Vraska in there and potentially take it. So we have tons of cheap, low-to-the-ground fight spells. This is not that. This is definitely more so for if you want to take out a few things at once. And it's going to be very, very good at doing that. Next, I'm actually really excited for it's Halana Kessig Ranger, 3 and a green for a 3/4 legendary creature human archer, has reach, and whenever another creature enters the battlefield under your control, you may pay 2. When you do, that creature deals damage equal to its power to target creature. So this just turns into an automatic 2 mana removal spell when we play any Death Touch creature. It's repeatable, it's cheap, it's one-sided, right? The other creature isn't dealing any damage back. This is going to be perfect for just mowing down our opponent's creatures. And then I want to talk a little bit, this isn't a major theme in the deck, but we're going to be, making a lot of these treasures by taking our opponent's creatures. I wanted to have a few cards that could take advantage or give you some value from having those artifacts on the board. So first is Dockside Chef, 1 black for a 1/2 enchantment creature human citizen. You pay 1 and a black, sacrifice an artifact or creature, and draw a card. It's just a way to take those artifacts, sack them for value. You're going to get to draw some cards off of. This card's not necessarily going to win you the game, but it will give you some value over the course of the game, and that could be the difference in the end. But the next could possibly win you the game. It's Marionette Master, 4 and 2 black for a 1/3 creature human artificer. It has Fabricate 3, so it either enters with 3 +1/+1 counters, or you create 3 1/1 artifact creature tokens. For this deck, you're always going to be adding the counters. There's really no major reason to get the servos, unless you're desperate for blockers. But the ability is whenever an artifact you control is put into a graveyard from the battlefield, target opponent loses life equal to Marionette Master's power. So by adding the counters, you get its power up to 4, and every time we sacrifice one of those treasures that we steal from people, whether it's from Dockside Chef or we're sacrificing it for mana, then target opponent's going to lose 4 life, which adds up very quickly. If you've stolen 4 or 5 creatures from a player, or a couple players over the course of a game, throw down this guy and then sack them all for mana, you're dishing out 20 damage across, however many opponents you have. That will kill somebody and could potentially put you in the pole position to win the game. And then finally, we've got the Thrift pick of the deck. For those of you who haven't seen the channel before, the Thrift pick is maybe not the card I think is objectively the best in the deck, but it's a card I'm very excited to play. It's a card I'm interested to see how it interacts with the board, how it goes along with our strategy. And this one, I'll admit, is a little mean, but it's a card I've literally never played before. I've never seen anybody play it before. I know it's not an uncommon commander, but it's not one that I've come across very much. So I'm excited to see it in play, and I think this deck is perfect for it. It's Finn the Fangbearer, 1 and a green for a 1/3 legendary creature human warrior. Has Death Touch, so fits that theme very well. Whenever a creature you control with Death Touch deals combat damage to a player, that player gets 2 poison counters. So it is Infect. I fully acknowledge that. But we've got tons of creatures with Death Touch. We're not trying to win exclusively through combat damage, but this is a very viable alternate win condition, right? If the game is just stalling out and you can get some damage in with some Death Touchers, you only have to hit somebody with 5 creatures. Not that hard to do over a course of 2 or 3 turns, especially if things are really slowing down. People aren't going to like it, but it is a way for this deck to win, and I think because of that and because of the Death Touch synergy, it's really worth including in the deck, and I'm excited to see how it plays out. With that brings us to the end of the video. Yeah, I very much enjoy getting to see this new commander from the new set. I really actually, I had some doubts about Outlaws of Thunder Junction, but I think they did it well. Some really cool cards that came out of this. Yeah, I'm excited to see how they kind of remain in commander moving forward. See what sticks, see what doesn't. But if you enjoyed the video, please smash that like button. Subscribe to the channel if you're not already. Go ahead, comment down below if you think of any cards that I missed, should have included. I might not have had it in my collection, but if there's any cards that you feel like fit perfectly into Vraska, let us know. Happy to hear from you guys. But yeah, until next time, stay safe and stay thrifty.